Hey guys, welcome back to What's Up, Grimes. We're sitting here with Dave. This is part 2 of our space podcast. We just finished a brief discussion of the history of space exploration. We're now up to good old SpaceX, which everybody knows about. So when we last left off, we were talking about the space station era. Until the 21st century, space programs of the United States were exclusively operated by government agencies. However, in the 21st century, this changed because several aerospace companies began efforts at developing a private space industry. This includes SpaceX, who is the most successful so far. Dave, thoughts on SpaceX before I go into it?
I feel like I might be an expert on SpaceX. I was there like last month.
What?
I went to the headquarters to inspect their manufacturing facilities, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, I gotta say. So they're providing the launch vehicle for the Roman Space Telescope, which is a project I'm working on. And so we have some requirements for them to keep it clean. Other requirements too about getting to orbit, but the important ones, keeping it clean. So I had to go out there and check it out.
In general, do you guys have a pretty positive relationship with SpaceX? Do people feel against it? What's the general vibe?
No, I think people like working with SpaceX. They are definitely a for-profit company, but basically anything you want, if you're willing to pay for it, they'll do it. So it's good.
Well, there's that. Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, which does business as SpaceX, is an American spacecraft manufacturer, space launch provider, and a satellite communications corporation headquartered out of Hawthorne, California, which is no longer true, right? They're now headquartered out of Brownsville, Texas.
I feel so disappointed then, because Hawthorne is where I went.
Oh, look at that.
Unless I think it's still, I think it's still there.
I did hear
there's something in Austin too.
Oh, see, I should have looked.
Or not Austin, but near Austin.
It was founded in 2002 by Elon Musk with the goal of reducing space transportation costs to enable the colonization of Mars. It manufactured the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch vehicles, several rocket engines, Cargo Dragon, crew spacecraft, and Starlink communications satellite. SpaceX scored its first big headline in 2010 when it became the first private company to launch a payload into orbit and return it into Earth intact, something only government agencies like NASA or Russia had done before. Do you remember that moment, Dave, back when, a private space corporation landed something that previously NASA had only done?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, even when I first started, I started with McDonnell Douglas, right, in 1991. And they were working on something called the Delta Clipper, which was going to be vertical takeoff and landing, just like the SpaceX rocket.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a great thing. And then they decided they weren't going to pursue it. And I wrote like a little white paper for them, like, this is why you should keep doing it. But, it didn't go anywhere. And then eventually they got bought out by somebody else and they don't exist anymore as a company.
Well,
but it's definitely, I think the way to go. And it's very cool. And, if you look online, you can see a lot of the failed videos as they were learning how to land it. And that's also very entertaining to watch as they attempted to land things. But they figured it out, they learned with each attempt and then now they can do it. That's how we work.
I think sadly I didn't pay any attention to SpaceX. I didn't know much about it until I read Elon's biography, I should say. And they mentioned the repeated failures and being like, dollars away from being bankrupt. And then something finally came through. And I can only imagine what that feels like as an engineer to know that we did it. Like we finally did it.
Yeah.
So this has made the headlines recently. SpaceX is developing a satellite internet constellation named Starlink to provide commercial internet service. In January of 2020, the Starlink constellation became the largest satellite constellation ever launched. And as of September 2022, comprises over 3,000 small satellites in orbit, which I don't think I knew that it was that expansive.
It's crowded up there.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of space. It's not crowded, like they're close together, but there's a lot of stuff up there. Yeah.
He sent stuff to Ukraine too, right? Recently it was Starlink related.
That's what I remember reading.
Well, yeah. Starlink's the communications network, but I saw one of the Starlink spacecraft when I was at their facility, and it's so cool. It's not at all what you picture for a satellite. It looks like a mattress. Like it's this rectangle that's really thin and then long and not too wide, right? And then it unfolds solar rays from one end, and it has a big hole in one corner. And I'm like, what's the hole for? And so they launch them stacked up on a post. So they launch a whole bunch of them at once, and they just go bling, 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 and they shoot off. They're like spring loaded.
Wow.
They just fire them off into space.
Crazy.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know. I didn't even occur to me what they look like. I don't know what I was picturing.
Yeah.
Like a drone, I think was what I was picturing.
I pictured just like a giant, like how grown adult people, where you like see like all the internet, like computer towers, like in the gated little cabinet that no one's allowed to touch. That's like blinking green and yellow. That's what I thought it looked like.
Yeah, no, it's very sleek. Yeah, it's cool.
Solid.
Wow.
The company is also developing Starship, a privately funded, fully reusable, super heavy lift launch system for interplanetary and orbital spaceflight. It is intended to become SpaceX's primary orbital vehicle once operational, supplanting the existing Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Dragon fleet. It will have the highest payload capacity of any orbital rocket ever built on its debut, which is scheduled for a 2022 pending launch license. I remember when he unveiled this, so I watch all of SpaceX's stuff, like any of their live events, including like even Tesla's live events. I like to watch because they're so fascinating. Other than Elon's kind of insufferable to listen to, but
I enjoy those moments though.
He's like so awkward.
The dancing, like
it's uncomfortable. But anyway, I love watching them. And when they unveiled Starship, I was blown away. I don't know what I was expecting. But to know that there's a rocket that's basically a bus from Earth to Mars is pretty crazy.
Yeah, very Blade Runner.
Very Blade Runner.
I think we have to go to other planets. And just because they're there, it's like climbing Mount Everest. Like we just have to go because we're humans and that's what we do.
Yeah.
I think in the long term, we're going to find it easier to colonize space as space stations, because if you build a big space station, you spin it, you can get gravity around the edges. It feels like you have normal gravity. So you go to Mars, you can build little domes to live in and stuff, but the gravity is light. And what'll happen is if you try to live there long term, like even if we decided like, oh, the health effects aren't so bad, like your kids would never be able to go back to Earth because they'd be crushed by the gravity. Like they wouldn't be able to handle it, right? Because they'd be adapted to this low gravity environment.
So there's no back and forth to, if your parents separated and one lived on Earth and one lived on Mars, it wouldn't work.
They have to meet at the moon or something, I don't know.
Oh God.
But it seems like the entire point of the colonization process of Mars to Elon was reflecting on the Earth's gonna die. And so Mars is kind of our escape plan. That's what I got out of his talks.
Well, yeah, people like to say that, like we're destroying the Earth and stuff like that. But the fact is, we may kill ourselves off, but the Earth will be just fine. It'll do fine without us. Like it's been hotter than it is now. It's been colder than it is now. It's had asteroids smash into it and set everything on fire. Like, Earth will be okay. It's us we have to worry about killing off.
I've
Very
heard
good point.
A similar argument to that, Dave, where people talk about how humans adapt to their environment. It's just what we do over time, natural selection. And so who are we to say that humans won't adapt to what you're talking about? When we think about all these like worst case scenarios, humans just adapt. So I don't know, that's something to think about. If you guys are interested in any of the SpaceX stuff, I highly recommend Return to Space. It's a documentary that features Elon Musk that's on Netflix. Have either one of you seen that documentary?
Yeah.
Is that the one where the people, like the civilians, go to space? Because there's one where, is it Mission to Mars? It's something where he selected a couple civilians to go to space. That's on Netflix too.
I need to look into this, because Return to Space details the history of SpaceX in a very palatable way. So if it feels like, hey, too much scientific information coming at you, this does it in a really palatable way and shows the humanity behind the scenes of like Elon watching his launches, his various launches, and how that affects him emotionally throughout the series. And you actually see him get emotional twice. One, he was rejected by Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong does not believe in SpaceX. And Elon gets very emotional. And then two, he gets emotional. A reporter asks him in the I'm trying to think of like the control area. Like, hey, how do you feel knowing that people's lives are on the line? And you're a dad. So what does that mean to you? And Elon actually gets pretty emotional. It's worth watching.
Yeah. The other one is called Countdown: Inspiration for Mission to Space. And it's, I don't know if it was a contest or something, but several civilians were picked to go to space through SpaceX, and Elon's on it. And it's pretty good.
Crazy. This brings me to SpaceX competitors. Boeing, which is building its CST-100 spacecraft to fly crewed ISS missions, along with Musk's Dragon, is a key rival. What do you know about that, Dave? Because I don't know much about that.
So I don't know much about that specific vehicle. I know that competition is good. Like the government in general likes to encourage more than one company to have the same capabilities.
Yeah.
Competition is good. I did look into the one from New Zealand. That was on your question list too. I can't remember the name of it now.
We'll get there, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But but Boeing, like all the big aerospace players, their main dinner comes from the military, right? And so that they have lots of funding and lots of time, and they have maybe technologies that the public doesn't know about, rocket related, missile related, right? So, I don't have any doubt that Boeing can produce just as good a rocket as SpaceX.
That's one. Orbital Sciences is a second. It's the company that shares the ISS cargo run contract with SpaceX. Another is United Launch Alliance, which is ULA. It's a partnership of Lockheed Martin and Boeing. And Musk is at war with it for a piece of the defense launching business. Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic is another player, though marginal, planning to sell only like suborbital rides, from what I read, for vacationers.
Yeah. Is he Virgin? Is he the Virgin guy?
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if you remember, but he has a picture, Elon has a picture with Richard Branson in his kitchen barefoot. It's an iconic photo, I have to say.
Yeah.
I may have seen that. I'll have to look.
I think Orbital is the one that produced the Pegasus rocket, maybe, which is the one that's launched from an airplane. That was also a pretty cool trick,
Sorry, I was like choking on my water, guys. Paul Allen's Vulcan Aerospace, which I've never heard, similarly wants to play in the space vacation sector, but here too, actual flights are still nowhere near imminent. And then everybody's favorite, Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, sees itself as a big player, and its recent upright landing of a suborbital spacecraft put it in the game. Really, Dave, do you really think the Jeff Bezos company is in the game?
Well, like I said, we like competition. So,
True.
Once you demonstrate it, so there's sort of a rating system that we get, right? Depending on how many successful launches you have. So SpaceX has to have a certain number of successful launches of their Falcon Heavy before the Roman Space Telescope will fly on it, right? Because we're what they call a Class A mission, which means we're high priority and everything has to be like reduce risks as much as possible, like, redundant systems, all that kind of stuff. But it also means that the launch vehicle has to be reliable. Like, we want to blow up, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of work because the launch vehicle didn't work. But there are other customers, like, commercial satellites, the communication satellites, they put up 100 in a year. If they lose one, it's not a big deal, right? They're coming off like cars coming off a line. So they can afford to use somebody that's only launched once or twice and show them, it seems pretty good. Okay, we'll go on there because it's cheaper, So when you break into this market, it's not just about showing that you can do it once. You got to repeat it.
Yeah.
You want to get to the good stuff.
Yeah. So MK, you have some questions that we got off our Instagram, and then I'll read the other ones that came from my DMs.
Sure. All right. So the first one will be Casper. He says, I have a question. Was it hard to get in NASA, and what was needed to work there?
I don't think it was hard to get in per se. So I told you they had an ad that all kinds of engineers wanted. So I went and I applied, and they looked at my GPA and they said, well, we're not going to be giving you the highest starting salary. I was like, that's okay. I just want to work here. So they let me in. And then, over time, I think I've made up for that. But
it's all based on your GPA. That's so interesting. Not like on your degree or.
Well, that's how McDonnell Douglas did it,
Interesting.
Like they don't exist anymore. So maybe that's indicative of something. I don't know. But yeah, I think they hire a lot of people that you might not expect. So in my group, we're considered engineers, but there's math majors. There's someone who is a double major in English and something else.
Oh.
Like it's just amazing. Like the people who end up in there. There's some physicists, some chemical engineers. But beyond that, there's people that run the websites for NASA, right? There's people in computer security. There's like people that give tours, right? Like that's like a job. People at the visitor center that take other people on tours around the center. Like there's all kinds of jobs at NASA.
Wow.
MK and I could do that one. Would be pretty good.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Here's where Dave works.
The pictures coming back from the James Webb Space Telescope. Yeah, they show pretty pictures, and it was the same with the Hubble telescope. The pictures are in color, but the data is not. There's like 20 people that work for the JWST program that color those pictures for you. Like they have to decide, there's maybe 20 different bands of information, and they're going to layer that together to make a picture. Okay, well, this band is more red and this one's more blue, and they see how it looks, right? But they're trying to communicate information. So like on the Hubble pictures, I know they have these nebulas that were really pretty, but if you knew what the code was, like blue was oxygen and yellow was nitrogen and red was hydrogen. So the color would tell you something about the molecules that were there and what they were doing. It wasn't just a pretty picture. So it's like both. It's like an art form. There's these artists that's their job, is to like take the scientific data and make it visual so people can appreciate it.
MK, we should get a hold somehow of one of the NASA artists.
Yeah, if you're close with any of them, we would love to talk to them too. I mean, all of this is this could be like I don't know how many Joe Rogan listeners are out there, but he does like 6-hour, 8-hour.
That's crazy.
Podcast. Like this could be a very long podcast.
Crazy. All right. The next one
is I'm gonna butcher
it's
this.
Erica. Yeah.
Oh, Erica Silvestri, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. I would love to know some details about how does it feel to work for NASA, the pressure of the responsibility, and the reward of working for such an inspiring agency, but mostly what contributes his team has made for some discoveries! !
It's
a couple questions there.
Yeah, it's a lot packed into one there. So let's say that you do feel the pressure sometimes, and the closer you get to launch, the more you feel the pressure not to screw up, right?
Yeah.
But even recently, so there's this program to return samples from Mars. You may be aware of this, the Mars sample return. They have a rover on Mars now. It's collecting samples and it's packaging them up, and it's going to drop them off at a certain place. And something that hasn't been launched yet is going to go get those things and bring them back to Earth so we can study them. So the thing that's going to go get them, when it comes back to Earth, one of the rules is you can't risk bringing some crazy Mars virus to Earth that's then going to like kill everybody, right? So
yeah, we wouldn't want that.
So there's like a lot of rules surrounding things going out, and there's even more rules about things coming back.
Right.
And one of the guys I work with, he was on this program, and he was not convinced about the analysis that somebody else had done showing that it was going to be okay. And so they called me in as a so now you have two different ways of analyzing the problem, and they have different answers. So they called me in as a third unbiased person to look at it, right? Because I wasn't working on the program. And I spent a couple of weeks like getting up to speed and learning a lot of really cool new stuff about how particles that are 20 nanometers wide stick to surfaces or come off of surfaces and things. And that was a lot of fun. But you knew what answer the project wanted, which was that everything was fine. right?
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
We designed it good. We don't have to make any changes. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. So you know what the managers want.
Yeah.
Right. And you know they got a schedule and they got only so much money, right? So there's that kind of pressure. But at the same time, like, I don't want to kill everybody on Earth, right? So I got to get this right.
Bad.
You know, and if the answer is not one they're like, I still got to tell them. Like, I got to be willing to stand up and say, no, you have a problem. And so you feel that pressure, and eventually it worked out that it's okay. It's all good now.
Well, that's great.
But,
do you randomly get pulled into different projects, or like, are you like assigned them, or do you does somebody ask your opinion and then you can get involved? Do you have that kind of flexibility?
Yeah, so we have an organization at Goddard Space Flight Center where each engineering discipline, like electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, contamination engineers, we have like a group because it's good for learning and cross training and, you know, mentoring people. And so we have our own management we report to, and then we're matrixed out to the projects. So there's the Roman Space Telescope, there's James Webb Space Telescope, so all the different projects. And so what happened was that project went to my branch and said, we need an expert. And I'm one of the more senior people there. And so they sent me over. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Pull in rank. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
I think those are all the ones that I see, but I do.
Oh, wait, I wasn't done with that question though.
Oh, you were?
Oh, yeah, the
Okay.
multi-questions, yeah.
Yeah, the multi-question, like, what have we contributed?
Please continue.
Yeah. So I'll go back in time a little bit. The second camera that we installed on Hubble Space Telescope, like the first time we did a servicing mission, the technology they used for that detector has ended up in mammograms to make mammograms better and more detailed. So
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah. So sometimes NASA technology spins off and it affects like everyday life in cool ways too.
Wow.
Yeah, saves lives.
Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
That brings us. Go ahead, MK.
I was going to ask a question
Please
before you brought it.
The MK
Okay.
question.
Yes. Okay. So what has been the movie that you've seen about space and just, you know, in your field that's sort of been the most aligned with your experience?
Good question.
Yeah, I really
Thank
liked
you,
From the Earth to the Moon. That was a really good series.
I've never
Okay.
seen that. Oh my gosh.
I haven't either. I'm going to have to
Oh,
check it out
yeah,
now.
you gotta go
I was
check
hoping it
out.
was like the Apollo movie. I was like, yeah, I've seen that one. Everybody's seen that
Apollo
one.
13.
The Martian. Everyone
Apollo
says the
13
Martian.
was cool because there you got to see that back room I was talking about, you know, the people with the
Yeah.
table and trying to
Oh,
fix
yeah.
things. Like, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff really happens. Like it's cool.
That's so intense. Exciting, but like I don't know if I could hack it in that room.
Yeah, that gives me
Sweating.
anxiety. I don't know. Maybe if I had the pink glittery hood, but apparently that's not an option. But I need NASA to design that option.
Mhm.
Yeah, that might be a deal breaker for Jen.
I can't work at NASA. What you gonna do? Okay, so one of the questions, Dave, was about the DART mission. Can you tell us what the DART mission is and your opinion on it?
Yeah, the double asteroid mission. So the idea was someday, not now, but someday we might discover a big asteroid coming at the Earth. And if you discover it when it's far away, you can just give it a little push and it'll miss the Earth, right? So we wanted to demonstrate the technology of sending out a satellite to bump an asteroid and move it a little bit. And if you think about it, it took 10 months to get there. So they launched it. It's like firing this satellite out of a gun. And 10 months later, this bullet's been flying around the solar system and it's moving 14,000 miles an hour. And it hits another object that's also moving, you know, tens of thousands of miles an hour. Like, that's pretty good aim, right? And the reason it was a double asteroid, they didn't really talk about this, but they wanted to see how much they changed the orbit. If you change the orbit of something that's going around the sun, right, you might have to wait 6 months to see enough of the orbit to know how much has changed.
Yeah.
Because this was a little asteroid going around another asteroid, right? Every couple of days it goes around. So pretty quickly you start to get that data on how much change you've done to the orbit. So that's why they, like, a double asteroid made more sense than just one asteroid by itself.
Okay, there's
Wow.
DART. Wow. Okay, opinion on selfie sat and the name selfie sat too.
I mean, I think it's cool. You could get your picture taken from space. I think of it as sort of a tech demo, right? We do a lot of tech demos. And if you have a satellite that can look at itself, right, the next step is to put a robot arm on it. And now you have a satellite that can repair itself, right? So,
what?
yeah, right. So we are developing already a repair robot satellite that can go up and repair other satellites, right? And it's going to have all kinds of cameras and they'll have arms.
Wally,
tools,
for real.
For real. But if you have a satellite that looks at itself, it could repair itself. Then wouldn't even need to do it.
That's cute. It looks in the mirror, MK, and it says, "What can I change about myself?" It's a self-reflecting satellite.
That is so adorable. Wow.
One day
I'm learning so much, guys, right now. This is awesome.
Are companies like Rocket Lab worth investing in?
So I think you just have to do your research about companies, right? So, what's the corporate structure like? What's their business model? All that stuff. Like, I'm not going to try to tell somebody what's a good investment or not, especially because most of the things I buy tend to go down in value. So I wouldn't take my advice anyway. My wife does much better than I do at investing. I don't know why.
Dave, for people that don't know in our audience, what is Rocket Lab?
So I think this is the one from New Zealand, right? So it was a company that it's the first company from the Southern Hemisphere to launch a rocket successfully into space. But now they've moved their operations to California, and they basically just want to be another player in the rocket launching business.
Just another one.
Just
we believe in you.
You already read a big list of them.
Say
yeah,
Elon has
I can't believe there are that many. I'm a little shocked by that.
I have a friend who worked for Iridium, which was a big communications satellite constellation. And he said you wouldn't believe the amount of money that's in commercial communication satellites. He said
wow.
company parties, like Christmas parties, he said were catered with caviar, and he said it was just over the top, live entertainment, all this kind of stuff, crazy stuff.
Hey, space.
I'm in the wrong field.
I know. Honest Starlink opinion.
I like it.
I think it's good. I like it.
It's good.
Honest Starship opinion.
I would probably go. I would go to Mars. I think I think we need to do it, and I think we're at the time when we could do it. We could have done it actually, in the 80s, but we ran out of reasons to go, I think. They had the plans. That's what I was talking about, the Nova rocket. They were going to make some things bigger at Kennedy Space Center because they already had plans to go to Mars back then. So the Saturn rocket was going to get stuck on top of an even bigger booster stage, and it was going to be called the Nova rocket. But like I said, we built Saturn to go to the moon because we wanted to get there before the Russians, because I don't know, American flags look better on the moon.
Yeah, it was a space race.
The space race, yeah.
Yeah, and then once the Russians gave up on that and weren't going to Mars, then we didn't need to go to Mars.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Is that why we totally stopped going to the moon? We haven't been to the moon, correct me if I'm wrong, till since 1972, right?
Yeah, that's why.
That's a long time.
Yeah, when it was a matter of national security, you could spend any amount of money. But if it's just for scientists,
So you don't think there was any life on Mars, the moon, found that deterred that?
No, because, so I told you about all the rules for bringing things back to Earth. The rules going outbound, it's called planetary protection. And the rules for planetary protection cover how you sterilize all your stuff that's going to get launched to another planet where there could be life, or could be just organic molecules that someone might want to study. And you don't want to accidentally discover Earth molecules that the last person took up there and say, oh, look, I found, whatever.
I found old Earth.
Right.
Here.
And the rules for going to the moon say you do not need to take any precautions because we now know there's nothing organic of interest on the moon. So there's no life, there's no lifelike molecules, there's nothing there. So we could
You heard it here first, people.
On the moon, it's all good.
Breaking news from Dave. Also, MK, this answers your question. The moon was not, in fact, made of cheese.
It was not. No.
I needed to know that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because Buzz didn't answer me, so I needed it answered.
Buzz needs to find his humor. That's all I have to say. Rude.
He left it in space.
Clearly. Anything else, MK, that we want to ask Dave pertaining to space before I get into the grime stuff?
Sure. Okay, so you said you would go to Mars. So you would go to space. Like if you had the option today, someone said you can go to space tomorrow, you would go.
I
mean,
probably wouldn't
your
have
schedule
the physical
allowed
anymore, but you know, if I would, like, yeah, space would be cool.
How grueling is this physical?
If you've seen the pictures of Earth, like from the moon and stuff, or even from, you know, the space station, they call it the blue marble, just the colors of the ocean, the kind of, like, I would just love to go up there and just see it. Cause you know, like a picture doesn't really do it justice.
Yeah. Seeing it in real life would be unbelievable. How grueling is this physical? Is it like military style?
Well, I just mean, like, I got a bad back now. They'd probably be like, no, launch wouldn't be good for you. They'll snap you in half like a twig. No good. Yeah.
Would you go to space, MK? Like if you were given the choice, to be on Starship and go to Mars, would you do it? If there were biodomes? No, yeah, I would.
If I had to go and this planet was like exploding, I would go, obviously, but I don't have any desire to do that. It's scary to me. I think I've seen too many sci-fi movies that have just like aliens. All of those movies have freaked me out about space.
You know, it's dangerous going to space, but because we know it's dangerous and we take precautions, it's probably safer than crossing the road. You know,
wow,
where you could step off,
right.
looking the wrong way and get hit by somebody because you weren't paying attention. Like, you know, like there's so many dangers around us every day that we just ignore. And when you go to space, yeah, it's a dangerous place, but everybody knows it and everybody's being real careful, you know?
Yeah.
Well, till you get the morons up there. Because if we're just going to let anybody go to Mars, the morons find it eventually. The people, you know, the coworker you don't want to work with because they don't really know how to do their job, they're going to make it to space.
Yeah, somebody up there is going to be like, what's this lever?
Yeah.
And bad things going to happen.
I don't trust other people. I want to live in a biodome.
I want to pull it.
Like that, can I choose who lives in my biodome? Like that's the thing. Is this
just civilization in general? But like up there, it's not Earth, so people will go up and be like, once civilians and people are up there, we need to have some organization.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it going to be like the
Wild West?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not here for that. I want to choose who my roommates are in the biodome.
Well, I think you got to write a paper about how, like, the psychological compatibility of your dome.
I agree.
And then you'll have to pick them because Jen says so.
Well, humans are naturally animalistic. I don't want to live in an animalistic biodome with no rules. There's got to be government. I want a president.
Leaving their socks out on the floor.
I cannot handle that.
We need order. We need order on this planet. It's not going to work. Yeah, it's just, you know, going there is one thing, but making sure, you know, we're all cool. I mean, I would be down for like a Wall-E style ship that's up there, you know, like it's a luxury cruise that's been going on for hundreds of years, you know.
Yeah.
Doesn't Wall-E just collect trash?
He's on Earth. The humans are on the spaceship, hanging out, sitting down, watching.
That's right,
TV,
getting fat. Yeah.
Drinking muffins.
Well, guys, I think that about wraps up our space discussion. I'm sure that when I'm editing this, I'm going to have 50 million more questions. However, we're not done yet because the way that I met Dave, and Dave and I do not know each other very well, but the limited interactions that I've had with Dave come from being in the Grimes fan community. So Dave, how did you discover Grimes?
Yeah, so that, I think I got to go like maybe a decade back to when the lockdown started in 2020. That was a decade, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Totally. My kids stayed home because schools were closed, and they did the virtual class thing. And then they did YouTube, like all the time YouTube. And I'm like, what is this YouTube thing that you're doing? And they're like, oh, it's educational. You can learn stuff.
What is this YouTube?
Yeah, I don't
like
think I had
SMK.
ever actually watched a YouTube video before 2020.
What?
Yeah.
Because you're a scientist.
Because
you don't
I'm
need
just
to.
busy with other things. Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
And but they were showing me like, look, you could like listen to music, you could do this, you could do that. I'm like, oh, I can listen to music, you know. And so I probably put in some random things from the 80s, and you know how YouTube like tries to come up with an algorithm. Well, at some point, it gave me this choice for Grimes at Grimies, and I thought, well, that's an intriguing name, right? And it was Grimes in, I don't know, Nashville at some record shop, when she was young, doing a little bit, and it's filmed from somebody's cell phone in the back of the crowd.
Yeah.
And she is just like, you know, she does a thing where she's holding the microphone with her chin.
Yes.
She is doing this.
Falls and just to catch it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, like turning the knobs, and she's just so into it. I'm like, wow, she's like really into this, you know. And so then I started looking for other stuff by her, and I think by the time I found like Oblivion, like I was hooked. I was like, oh, this is great. So then I was, you know, just listening to that all the time. And then I don't know how I saw that she was advertising like the metaverse, the Grimes Super Beta metaverse thing. But that led me to be like, oh, well, now I gotta like learn what this Discord thing is that my kids use. So I went for help.
Please teach me more.
Yeah. So they, you know, so I got onto Discord and I got into their, you know, the Grimes community there. And yeah, and it was neat. And there were, you know, some really fun people there. So first I was quiet, I was just watching, and then, you know, get the hang of things and start talking to people, and yeah, you know. I
haven't gotten the hang of things quite yet.
Yeah.
Jen, I talk like a grown adult person on there.
One day you'll just wake up and you'll be an expert.
Hello.
Like, oh, yeah, I know what's going on.
Actually,
and
Dave,
then,
hello,
you know,
everyone.
There was an art channel in there, right? And so this also, I guess, ties in with art. So I didn't really do any art before 2020.
Wow.
I picked that up as a hobby, like stuck at home, you know, not doing so much stuff. So I was like, well, let me try like get a little tablet and see if I can like do some digital art stuff. And so then, you know, people were making fan art, and I was like, oh, that's a neat thing, fan art. So then I got myself an Instagram account. I also had never used Instagram or TikTok or Twitter.
Relatable. Yeah.
I was like, you know, I don't want to know any of these things. I want to be an old person. But now, you know how these things work.
Right there with you.
Yeah, so my Instagram account, like the very old stuff, you'll see a lot of Grimes stuff because it started as like a Grimes fan account kind of, but then it evolved out of that into just more generic art stuff.
How does your wife feel about this? Because my husband, like he likes certain songs, but other times he's like, okay.
Yeah, I don't think she's really a fan of Grimes. She's like, what is that? But she doesn't listen to a whole lot of music anyway. She's into podcasts. She's a podcast listener.
Oh,
my husband the same. Yeah.
She'll love this one.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you're doing a podcast?
What does your wife do?
She also works for NASA. She works, we met at NASA, in fact.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. She was a thermal engineer when we met, but now she's a systems engineer, which means she's like the cat herder for all the other engineering disciplines.
Does she want to be on the podcast?
Yeah, honestly.
I don't know. I could ask.
You could do as a couple together.
Yeah, we should have asked.
We used to drive to work together, and so we would talk about work a lot. But now that we don't drive to work anymore, we've lost track of what each other's working on because we don't have that talking about.
Because you're both hybrid, or
yeah. And she works upstairs, and I work in the basement because that way if we have a meeting at the same time, like we're not talking over each other.
Yeah.
So,
do you guys, I mean, I can't ask this question. I was just going to say, do you communicate okay working from home together? Like, is that not a problem for you guys?
No, like, yeah, we've always been good together. Like we don't clash at all. Like if that's your.
I think that's so rare.
Actually,
although MK, you do it. You work from home with Casey.
I have a new development today. He was like, you might want to go into the office more. I need to have some space.
I'm that person.
Speaking of space, he was like, and I, you know, the kids are back in school. It's like a whole, Dave, we moved from California to the East Coast. So it's like been a huge change for me, my kids, and they just went back to school. And my husband, I can go in when I want, but he was like, you might benefit from going in. And I'm like, me?
Nice.
Or you just want, he's a writer,
benefit.
so he works from home anyways. So I'm just like, you didn't say this at all during the pandemic. Now that, sort of, it's not over, but still,
Jeez. Where was I? Oh, Discord. I don't know what I was gonna say. So Dave's art. So I didn't know that Dave did art. And then one day I got on Discord and Dave had drawn me. Oh no, you put me with Princess Leia space buns first, because I had my space buns on for hosting ArtNet. And I was like, that's super cute. And then one of the staff members pointed me to your Instagram page, because you had drawn staff members, and now that's like considered an honor on ArtNet when you draw on a list.
Yeah, I just
oh my God,
that was like something people look for. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. So
I've arrived.
You've arrived.
I've arrived
quickly. That took me a long time to get one, and then when I did get one, it was great. You had nailed my hair color. Nobody nails my hair color ever.
I remember I was compelled. I saw your hair color, and I was compelled to reproduce it. I was like,
there it is.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Aww.
So, Dave, I know that, back in the day, you just started listening to Grimes a decade ago when COVID started.
Yeah.
What's become your favorite? Back in the day, when we were all younger and life was simpler. What's become your favorite album and favorite song of hers?
So I really do like going back to Oblivion a lot, and so Visions was high on the list, but I think
Visions.
Miss Anthropocene is just squeaked it out, because there's just so much good stuff on there.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny so you found her during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So many of us did. It's so interesting. I wonder if it's because she released an album during that time, and then we kind of came across it that way, and then found our own path with what version of her we liked the best too.
I don't know.
So
I remember being really excited when I found all the videos for what's the middle one? The Art
Angels.
Art Angels, because she did sort of guerrilla videos. She kind of filmed herself and Hannah, and that was really cool. Watching how they all fit together and stuff.
Oh, that is my favorite. I love the Kate Bush wig. I love, they're sitting on a private plane eating fruit.
Yeah.
She's got her flip-flops. I love that era. That's my favorite. No matter what, that's my go-to Grimes. Art Angels. I found Miss A first. But I kind of
those are actually the three. I have Visions, Art Angels, and Miss Anthropocene in the truck that I drive, and I just cycle through them. That's all I listen to.
Yeah.
What? So then I put on something else that was pretty eclectic, and they were like, "This isn't even music. Go back to Grimes." Yes. Okay.
Nice. Dave, how old are your kids?
So I have my oldest son is 27. But then I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old as well.
Oh,
teens. They should be all about Grimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter likes Grimes. She's like, "Oh, you've got me into it. I really like this song.
Oh.
They need to listen to your podcast. I think that's so cool that their dad's on a podcast. Come on. What teenager isn't that's cool?
Yeah, but they wouldn't admit it to me,
No, never.
That's true.
Why would you? That's not cool. Dave, do you watch Claire's interviews very often, or no, just into her music?
I do love her interviews, actually. And in fact, I like when bits of her kind of sneaks in to her music videos.
I love it.
I think it was in Violence that she's doing the thing. She's wearing the mask, right? Because she couldn't stop laughing. She said,
right.
But at the end of the one set, she's like, she gives a little thumbs up. And they could have edited it.
Right.
Out,
isn't there
is that
good? Yeah. There is a picture of her doing 2 thumbs up too. So I don't know if that was the first one they caught. And then because I saw it recently on some fan account, and I was like, what's that from? She's doing a thumbs up? Like,
Yeah.
what? I'll have to go back and watch.
But yeah, I think she got annoyed at one point because people want her to still be like a starving artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what it is that when she was young and vulnerable, like it's like you just wanted to like make it better for her, you know?
Yeah.
And I think people just like identified with that time and like oh, you know, like this young person that's like struggling and you know. But of course now she's successful and people are like, yeah, success. But I mean, I think it's good to be successful. Yeah.
Well, I think it's odd how people go after her for having an affluent background. Why does that make you any less of an artist? People don't like that though, for some reason. They want you to be that underdog that had no money and, you know, who cares? You're still an artist. You still had talent. She got to where she was on her own.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to struggle for the art, according to some
That's right.
people,
You need to cut your ear off or, you know, have some other craziness. Yeah, to be a good artist.
Well, guys, this about wraps up our conversation with Dave. Dave, thank you so much for joining us and being here with two grown adult ladies.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It's good.
Proof that there are other grown adults that like Grimes.
Yeah, that are professionals. Yes.
Yeah, that makes me and MK feel good. So, guys, continue to stay tuned. We'll get these posted for you, and we appreciate you so much.
Love you guys.
Thanks.